Guvna B, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you with us. Just tell us how you're doing.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a cool start to the year. Not too crazy. Been enjoying chilling out with the family, wife and son. This lockdown's probably the one that I found the toughest. So I've been going for walks and stuff, and I don't really like walking, especially in the cold. But yeah, we're getting through it, man. So yeah, I've been okay.
Nice. Lockdown 3, they just keep coming. I heard on Radio 2 you've been doing a few more quizzes. But I wondered if you had any tips or new skills that you've learned throughout the 3 lockdowns we've had.
The first lockdown, I said I was gonna study piano, like learn piano. I didn't, so hopefully I get that done this time. But I've actually cooked some meals that I haven't cooked before, man. So like teriyaki, salmon, and little bits and bobs like that. So I'm a bit of a better chef than I was before. So if you ever want to come round for dinner, let me know, bruv. I'll sort you out, trust me.
Nice. I'll take you off for that, I'm sure. You said that this lockdown has been one of the toughest. And I think mental health is one of those things that a lot of people have struggled with. A lot of students who will be tuning in tonight will have struggled with over the last 8 or 9 months. I just wondered if you had any top tips. I know you speak in the book that's coming out in a bit, which we'll come on to in a few minutes, but I wondered if you had any tips for just getting through these times.
Yeah, I think everyone's different. So different things help different people. But for me, one of the things I realised is I've been quite honest with the people around me, but I haven't always been honest with myself. And I think sometimes that's quite a hard thing to do, you know, to look in the mirror and say, actually, I've been feeling low for a while, or actually I feel quite claustrophobic in this environment, or actually my thoughts have been quite negative and I probably should do something about it. You know, sometimes, can't speak for everyone, but certainly me, I can be in denial about how I'm actually feeling. So a tip is to take the pressure off yourself by being honest with yourself. Like, we haven't got to have it all worked out on our own. That's not the way that life's meant to be. We're not meant to be perfect. So I guess once you realize that you're struggling, just admit that. And then there's probably a few things that you can do off the back of that. You know, for some people, it works to speak to someone that they know loves them and cares about them, whether it's a family member, a friend, a counselor. For others, it might be to get out of the house and go for a walk. For all of us, it's, you know, praying to God, because even when I'm struggling, man, like that vertical relationship makes me realize that I'm not on my own. So there's a few things. I don't think it's just like a one size fits all, but I think a really important part of that is looking in the mirror and being honest with where you're at.
Yeah, that's good. That's real helpful. I did want to talk about your album Everywhere and Nowhere. You released that at the start of April, which was actually at the start of lockdown. And I remember listening to it actually on the first of what turned out to be many lockdown runs for me. And that album came out at this really unique time in British earthly history. And it'll always be remembered by me for being the songs that I listened to throughout lockdown. But I wondered how that has been received as an album over lockdown.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. So the album launch party was meant to be the end of the week that we went into lockdown, and then I was meant to go on a tour the month after. So I was kind of understandably gutted because it kind of ruined the whole like rollout plan of it. But kind of in hindsight, I think for a lot of people, what I'm hearing is it's the album that they needed to help them through this time. And sometimes we think we know what God's up to, but his plans are, you know, way different to ours. So in my mind, it was like, right, this is the best album I've ever done. I've worked with some real heroes on it, like Matt Redman's and the Wretch 32s and that kind of stuff. And this is going to be the one that kind of takes it to the next level. But I think what God had planned was, right, I'm going to allow this thing to happen to the world, and I'm here within it, and I'm going to use certain things to help people get through it, and your album's going to be one of them. And so I think like the messages on the album of faith, of dealing with grief, of mental health, they were actually quite timely, even though I didn't know what was about to happen. So there was like a few successes, like a few of the songs got playlisted on like Radio 1 and 1Extra and all that kind of stuff. But I think the most important thing to me was, you know, like you say, it helped people through a really tough time in their lives. And I think that's way more important than any kind of chart success or radio success or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of honest truths in it. I really did like it. And I would like to talk a little bit more about being a Christian in the music industry. Your music is quite strongly influenced by your faith. And I wondered if you have ever had to, and if so, how have you managed the weighing up the tension between being open about your faith in your music and choosing the success line?
Yeah, I've always kind of grappled with it up until a point. So I started rapping in year 9. I was rap battling in the playground, kind of saying some not very nice things about people's mums and stuff. Very, very naughty. And then kind of got convicted when I became a Christian. And from that point, I always had this conviction that I was always meant to point to Jesus through my music. I might not be saying Jesus, the name Jesus, in every single song, but I want people to be able to know that there's something foundational about this, and that's Jesus, and make people want to connect with him. So I've always had that conviction, but I've always been in environments that kind of make that tension a little bit harder. So I remember like my first mainstream tour, I went on with an artist, and the artist kind of, after the show, when we got back to the hotel, kind of called me and said, "Do you want to come to my room playing FIFA or whatever?" So I said, "Yeah, I'll go." So I went to his room, and there was FIFA there, but there was also kind of half-naked girls and drugs and that kind of stuff. And in that point, it's almost like I had to make a decision of, right, is this for real? Am I just a Christian in the lyrics, or am I allowing my life to reflect what I'm rapping about as well? And I had the decision to make. I could have just went along with it, or I could have said, look, this is not for me. So I said, this is not for me. And it was very embarrassing for me walking out that room. But the next day I had a conversation with the main artist, and he was like, "So why did you walk out, man?" And I got to share about my faith and why I write the music the way I do. And it really, really spoke to him. And so I think I've always had this conviction that God's going to use me to draw people to him. And it's something I can't get away with. I get away from. I always tell people, when you feel that tension, you got to follow the peace. And I think that peace is the Holy Spirit. And whenever I feel uncomfortable, I know that it's probably not what I'm meant to be doing. But I feel peace with talking about Jesus through the music. And that's just my personal conviction. I've got loads of Christian friends who are artists. You know, Eddie Linebear's here tonight. Michael Kiwanuka, like Sam Henshaw, a few of them. And we've all got slightly different approaches. Maybe some people feel like they're meant to make music for the church. Michael Kiwanuka is probably more like, I'm mainstream. But with me, I've always felt like I'm meant to be a bridge between the streets and the church. And that's where I sit, man. But it's not been easy.
No, I love that. Follow the peace is great. And I think there will be a lot of students watching tonight who will they'll either be starting university or they'll be finishing university, and they'll be entering this new world, this new environment, where they'll have to make decisions on whether they follow what the world suggests they do and what their faith suggests they do. And follow the peace is a great piece of advice. I wonder if there was any other top tip you had just to encourage people just to follow their faith.
Yeah, definitely. I think you have to be intentional about your community. And that's one thing that I wasn't really hot on when I went to university. You know, before I got to university, most of my friends were Christians. I was living in London with my family. I was around like-minded people. It was a lot easier to stay the path. It was a lot easier to be faithful because I was around people that wanted the same thing on the most part. I got to university and I thought, it doesn't really matter who my friends are. I'll just make friends with anyone and everyone. And not everyone had the same vision that I did for my life, the same vision that God had for my life. And so I was around people that didn't really care about the state of my soul, didn't really care about my faith. And I'm not saying just have Christian friends, but all I'm saying is you need to be really intentional about building a community around you that are like-minded for the most part and want the best for your soul, want the best for your faith and that kind of stuff. So that's definitely one, be intentional about your friends. And number two, I think is be honest. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have weak points. And I think one saying that I love is you got to look after the puddles before they turn into floods. And especially at university, what happens is you make a mistake and you're not as honest with the people that really care about you as you should be, whether it's your pastor, your youth leader, or your family members, your friends, whatever. You try and hide it, and then you become desensitized to that mistake, so you keep doing it again and again and again, and it becomes this big thing that you don't want to tell anyone. Whereas if you're just really honest with where you're at from the jump, the mistakes seem a bit smaller and easier to deal with, and they're just puddles. But if you let it get into a flood, it's just way harder to deal with. So I'd say be honest from the jump and be intentional about who your friends are.
Yeah, nice. Thanks so much. And I listened to a podcast that you did with Nikki and Bex Gumbel recently, and you said that it is time for more diverse worship music within church. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were alluding to the diversity of worship leaders and the style of worship as well within church. And I'd love to hear a bit more of your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I think that the church, especially in the UK, is diverse. You've got people from different backgrounds, different races, different experiences. And in our daily lives, we all listen to different music. But for some reason, when we get into a church service, for the most part, or a church circle or network or whatever, there only seems to be one or two types of worship. And I love that, I love the acoustic guitars. I love that some of my best friends are worship leaders, the Matt Redmans and Martin Smiths and all that kind of stuff. But I just think there are more expressions of worship that we can explore. When you kind of compare it to like the mainstream world, there was a time, I know Josh, you're a big Shawn Mendes fan, but there was a time like back in the day where, you had like Coldplay and U2 and these kind of big bands, and that was what was like mainstream and everyone loved. But now that kind of music isn't the main thing anymore. You got like grime and rap that's topping the charts and that kind of stuff. So I think that we've just got to be looking at the fact that there's been a shift in music and there's different styles and different experiences that people want to hear and people are a part of, and try and draw people in that way. So what I'm not saying is I don't want any kind of 4 chords, guitars, throw that stuff out the window. But what I am saying is there's more to explore, man, and there's different styles, and we can only achieve that if we involve different people,
Nice. You've bookended that Shawn Mendes comment with some real wisdom, so that might just have to stay in. But I wondered, like rap is one of your main things. There's a rise of secular artists in the music industry at the moment, talking a bit more about the Christian faith, Stormzy, Kanye. Do you think that's a good thing? And how do you think it will influence the way that Christianity is perceived?
I think it's a good thing because it brings hope, I think it's a nuanced conversation. We're living in a time where people are struggling, and there's a lot of bad news, and people are down and anxious and depressed. And so hope is really, really important right now. Jesus is really, really important right now. Now, if I'm, I don't know, Susie that has never been to church before and hasn't heard the gospel, doesn't know anything about Christianity, and I turn on Radio 1 and I hear Stormzy, Blinded by Your Grace, and it makes me feel something, it makes me look towards God, I think that can only be a good thing. On the other hand, I think it's really important to do life with people and to journey with people, and there's people in the Christian world that have been making Christian music for a long time and journeying with God and developing and that kind of stuff. So I don't think that we should place, the Stormzys and those kind of people like above people in the church that have been really like faithful with their music and stuff. But I think God can use anything and everything. I think everything is redeemable, and I think it's only a good thing that people are talking about faith more in mainstream music. And I think it's an exciting time for Christians who have been doing it for a while. Like I said, songs from my album got played on Radio 1 and 1 Extra and that kind of stuff. That probably wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. Maybe it's a Stormzy or a Kendrick or a Chance the Rapper talking about Jesus, or a Justin Bieber that has made that a bit more palatable. And if so, then great, God's used that. But I think it's an exciting time all round, and I think people need hope and faith in whatever way they can get it. So it's a great time for Christian musicians to rise up and bring that message.
Yeah, especially in these times. I'm interested in the topic of your book, Unspoken, which is coming out really soon, actually. And you talk about something that I know I've faced, and I know that a lot of students will face as well with mental health and like masculinity and stuff like that. And I just wonder if you could just explain what inspired you to write this book and what it's all about.
Yeah, sure. So, when my dad passed away in 2017, I struggled to process it a lot. I tried to do everything that I had been conditioned to do. So, don't cry, like man up, things will get better soon, stiff upper lip, that kind of thing. And all those things made sense. Like, it seemed like the right way to deal with things, but I couldn't help but think it was having a detrimental effect on my mental health, and it wasn't really working for me. Like, all I wanted to do was cry, and all I wanted to do was not man up, whatever that means. And all I wanted to do was not move forward. I wanted to sit in my processing for a while. I wanted to sit in that pain for a while because it was so overwhelming. And so I allowed myself to do that. It was probably about 3 months after where I just kind of broke down. I said, you know what, I can't be strong in this moment. I just can't do it. And that first time that I cried was the first time I cried for years and years and years. And it felt like the most freeing thing ever, which was weird for me because I'm like, right, my council estate and the culture there, they taught me that you don't do that. My family said, like, you're the firstborn and you got to stay strong. And they taught me that you don't really do that. But for some reason, when I just let myself go and I cried and I came before God, whole heart, vulnerable, I felt better after. And it kind of taught me that, do you know what society encourages men to be like isn't always best for the mental health of men. And it's not just men, it's women as well. It's just a way of life. We've got to move on and get on with it. That's not always the best way to deal with things. And so I wanted to explore how being vulnerable, giving everything to God, relying on the strength of God rather than our own strength could be maybe a good way to deal with things rather than just pretending to be like this macho man with all this bravado and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just exploring my emotions and how I wanted to learn to communicate more and process better and speak to people about how weak I felt. Because I think sometimes we think we relate to each other and we get inspired by strength, but actually I think we can get inspired by vulnerability and sharing our weaknesses with each other, man. So yeah, that's what the book's about.
Great.
For the most part.
Out in February, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's February 18th it's out. Pretty excited about it, man.
Nice. Make sure you get your hands on one of them. Guvna B, it's been so great to have you with us. This year has been unprecedented. It's the word that everyone's been using. But something else that has been unprecedented is your beloved West Ham Football Club are in uncharted territory right now. They're in the Champions League spots. I just wanted to know what it feels like.
It feels amazing, you know, at the time of recording, 6 wins in a row. By the time you see this recording, probably be even more. Souček, great signing. Declan Rice, probably worth about 200 million at the moment. Yeah, I'm living life right now. I'm feeling good, man.
More truths from Guvna B. Mate, it's been so great to have you with us. We're speaking to Joel Ward a little bit later on as well, so we'll talk to him a bit more about the football. But, mate, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to have you for our student event, and all the best for the book and for whatever the next year brings. Take care.
You too, man, and tell Joel Ward that I'm sorry West Ham beat Crystal Palace 3-2 yesterday.
We will do. Thanks, mate. Cheers.